Hello and welcome to another Capturelife Photographer Spotlight interview. I'm here today with Heather Sams of Heather Sams Fine Portraits. Heather, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So the Capturelife Photographer Spotlight series is designed for interviews with innovative photographers who are embracing the experience economy and this new modern mobile journey that we're all trying to join with our consumers. And I've invited Heather here today because she's taking her photography businesses with a little bit of my help into some, well, I should say, onto the cutting edge, right? And I wanted to bring her on and talk a little bit about this program that she's working with me on. But before we do that, I'd like to find out how you got into the photo industry.
So I've loved photography since I can remember, and my first photography job was working at JCPenney's in their portrait studio when I was 16. But gosh, joined the military, got out of that, and just really wanted to get into it. So I found a local studio that needed an assistant, and the rest is history. I was immersed in the local profession by a lot of local professionals, and have since moved on with my own company. So
excellent. And that experience in the military is going to come into play in a little bit here as we talk more about this workflow. Before we go on, again, thank you for joining me with this workflow. I'm going to run through it a little bit for the viewers so that they understand what we're doing. Capturelife is this, it's what's called an open API platform, meaning that other companies can plug into it, right? So some photographers are using PhotoLink's Flow, some are using Rose, whatever it might be. And in this case, what actually happened is a photographer in Canada called me up last year about this time, it was in fall, and said, hey, TW, I've got these, I've got 7 malls that I'm going to take pictures of Santa Claus in, right? And so it's the typical mall Santas with the long lines, and you know, 5 seconds with Santa, and the kid's probably crying, trying to take that picture, right? And what he wanted to do was have that experience such that he was capturing some of the customer information, and then while they were taking pictures, well, I should say, as the customer's walking away after the photo session, he wanted to take it to that next step where instead of burning a USB drive, telling the customer to come back 2 days later or 6 hours later to pick up the USB drive, it was, how do I get these images onto their phone? And of course, Capturelife specializes in that end of it, which is that mobile experience, right? But the problem was, how do I do this when I've got a gazillion people behind me? They're all, you know, late for whatever they're doing and shopping and ornery and wanting to go home. And so what we did was we put together this system where the customers could be typing in their name, email address, and phone number on the front end. And then the photographer on the back end, all they have to do is take photos, add them to this customer record, and by the time the customer is walking away, their phone's going off with this text message, right?
Yes.
Okay, and I see you smiling, so something's working here.
Yep.
What you and I did is you brought to me, again, going back to this military experience, you brought to me a specific use case. Actually, it came through one of our salespeople, through Zach, and we hashed this out. And so you've taken this system, and I guess walk us through how you've adapted it to what you wanted to do in your specific scenario.
So the military ball event is a very formal event, and you can imagine in today's day and age, we don't get dressed up in formal gowns very often, but the military does at least once a year. And when they come home from deployment, they party. So I've always said it's prom with alcohol. It's just a fast and furious kind of night. So it's a lot of the same energy as that mall Santa line. You know, their expectations are fast and now. So I've done them for years, and I have always fought against, we want to see them now. Can't we have them right now? So I have, over the years, kind of developed this understanding, as well as trying to produce what they're hoping for, which they want a nice portrait because she got dressed up. She got her nails done and her hair done, and all that stuff is important. So over the past couple of years, I've been trying to find a system where I can at least show them their photos And I was doing that for a little while, the system that was super cumbersome. They had to walk up to computer systems and log in and look at their photos and then choose packages and all of this. And I thought, it's just too much to ask for, especially with alcohol involved. Wow.
Right.
So I decided, let's take this and make it a whole lot easier. What do they want? They want a nice portrait. They want it now. And as long as I take the time on the front end to make sure that posing and lighting and all of that is what it should be, then there really doesn't need to be packages per se. They just want photos and they want them as they walk away. So I've always wanted the system that I could, produce the photos that night, give them the customer experience. And as they're picking up their drink in their purse and they're walking away, they're getting a text and they're all happy. And it's the most dreamy system I have ever.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Because, yes. Did that answer your question? Did that help?
I love it. I love it. And so, I guess in my own little bubble world and not having been in the military, I had no idea that military balls are a thing, right? And I guess this goes back to, I was in the volume portrait industry as a youth athletic sports photographer and ran a big company for many years. And I always thought of kind of school and sports as the volume photography. But certainly when the Santa Claus photographer called me and I started digging into that, and there are millions of those transactions happening in this compressed little 2 or 3 week period. And then talking to you, I started to realize, man, there are volume portrait situations happening all across the country at multiple times of the year. And you certainly have picked a case that, of course, lends to your experience. I guess I have a couple of questions. I guess I'd like to go through more of the on-site process, but how did you figure out that this was a thing and this could be done, these military balls?
Well, I had been asked, it's been about almost 14 years ago, I got a phone call asking, would you photograph a 900-person ball? I'd never done such a thing.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't want to turn him down. I set an appointment, hung up the phone, and immediately called a dear friend who's been in the industry for a long, long time. That's something I've been super blessed with in my region. I have been surrounded by veteran photographers that have done it a lot longer than me. And I knew that I didn't have the answers, but I knew that other people would. So I set a time and said, let's talk about it. And then called this friend of mine, and he said, don't tell him no, we'll figure it out. Yeah. So, and he was right. And since then, I've done hundreds of these events. And so to have that resource was huge. And to be in the center of this, I'm telling you, it is mass chaos at one of those events. Yeah. Because the military do something very well. They show up on time, the way that they're told, in the right uniform, and they do what's expected of them. And then at a ball like that, they showed up on time with, in the right dress uniform, she's in a gown, and they go straight to the bar, and then they go straight to the photographer. It happens every single time. Yeah. And so it's just one of those animals that in this region, there are 5 military installations in my area. So 4 Air Force bases and 1 Army post. And the Army post is bigger than all the Air Force bases. So these units, they party all the time. And it's an interesting wave to kind of ride because some years it's higher, some years it's lower, but it's been without fail. So it's just been a niche that like you mentioned earlier, because I was in the military, I truly think God put me in the Army 25 years ago so I can speak the language at a military ball and I can get 25 drunk soldiers to do exactly what I want, when I want, for as long as I want. It's great. So this system needed to be fast. Yes, and this system needed to accommodate to the fast-paced nature of it. I've done it in a very slow, cumbersome way that people have adhered to because they had to. It was their only choice. But since I've implemented Capturelife, I will tell you that I have had customers come back to our station after they've had their text and got their app downloaded. They come back just to thank us. They come back and say, this is marvelous. They're so excited about the ease and how fast and easy it was. So it's been great.
And I'd like to just pause there because what you just brought up, this idea that it's so instantaneous that they're coming back to you, pointing to their phone, going, look at this. This is a great picture. I think that, this is something that we haven't seen before. And it's an excellent case because Capturelife is designed as a mobile experience. So they certainly can share this out on social media, right? So in this instantaneous sharing world that we have going on out there, whatever you're using, Facebook or Instagram, whatever it might be. I mean, these images can fly out basically instantly. But more importantly, if they're coming to you with those pictures, you can sure bet they're going to their friends who are probably at that ball with them, right? Showing them pictures, beaming them out to Facebook. So everybody around there is starting to get this buzz that's happening. Have you witnessed that as part of this experiment that we've been doing?
When I'm at a military ball, I put the Energizer Bunny to shame. I make him look really lazy. So I'm just going and going and going and going. The line doesn't stop until, they either call people. I would get trumped by Sergeant Major. Sergeant Major comes out and says, everybody get in the ballroom. So until that happens, I'm oblivious as to what's going on around me. But, I imagine it does happen some because of the socialness of that event, and show and tell is such a big thing. So, yes, I imagine that makes that line stay continuous for hours that night.
So the new line of command is Sergeant Major and then Heather Sams. Is that what you're saying?
Right. That's right.
All right, let's. We still haven't really gotten into the details of how all this works, but before we do that, let's stop for a second and let me ask: what were you doing? What was this cumbersome project where it was these stations and people were getting drunk and it was just really hard to herd this cattle, this drunken cattle at that time?
Well, I will tell you, for years I did it what I would always consider the old school way, which is they had to walk up, fill out an order form, pay what package they wanted. They got in line. Mm-hmm. We said, see if you'll have these photos in a couple of weeks. And they got one pose and they got what they got. People hated that. They did it, but the average sale was way down. So I was hungry for a system that they could at least see their photos that night. Because if they had choice, I knew that it would raise my average sale. Well, what came with that was a system that required, oh my goodness, on the back end, the amount of admin that we had to deal with on the back end was really not intuitive. It was super difficult. If you didn't check one box, the whole thing wouldn't work. Then at the event, because it's all internet-based, they would have their picture taken. They would, they would come up, they'd fill out a quick little form. We'd have to scan a barcode. We'd take their photos. They would immediately grab their drink, walk over to a bank of computers and log in. That was the cumbersome part. They were anxious to see them, and they would wait in line behind the computer for the couple in front of them to be done. But they would have such a difficult time navigating the website that we required them to go to look up, what the packages were that we offered. So they had to choose which photos and then choose packages and then navigate the payment or the checkout process, which it was just too much. And I have always said, when I talk to these units that want me to be at their event, people didn't show up to have their picture taken. They showed up to have fun. Yeah. We want to get them through our line as fast as we can, but they were waiting in line to have their picture taken and then waiting in line to choose their photos. It was just too much. And oh my goodness, the amount of equipment, it wasn't fun. And the amount of equipment that we had to lug and hope that, all of it, that we remembered every cord and every mouse and you name it, all of this, it was too much.
I've been there.
So that's what I was doing before.
Yeah, I've been at photo shoots like that. And certainly you just went through that and it didn't sound like much fun, not just for the people at the ball who are there to have fun. So your system has to have fun. I think in this day and age where we're all, where's my phone? I mean, where we're all used to these selfies and doing whatever we're doing with the phones, if they're not having fun and your photo line isn't happening in an instant, I can see us as a society, for better or worse, starting to lose patience really quickly when we're all so used to taking photos with our phones. Granted, it's not the same level of photo that you're taking. I've seen your pictures. They're absolutely wonderful portraits. You've got the flags, and they're great.
Well, I'm going to chime in because that's a point that I have often said in our industry is we have to produce something that they can't with their phone, that they can't with their own cameras. So what I battle at those events is not just the timing, but I want to produce something. So that goes back to kind of my upbringing when it comes to this industry. There's master photographers up and down the Front Range of Colorado that I have been blessed to been able to watch and learn under. And when it comes to corrective posing and lighting, let me tell you, putting a woman in a gown that she should not have been in, something that, it's my job to flatter every single body type in front of my camera. And I can do that because it was beat into me by old crusty photographers. And trust me, I'm going to be one someday. That's my goal.
Good.
So they beat into me that posing and lighting, that corrected posing and lighting, that they can't do with their phones. I don't care what iPhone comes up with, they will not be able to flatter someone in front of a camera. I mean, yes, the whole selfie generation has learned to look up at a camera. I get that. But you don't look up at a camera when you're doing a formal portrait, even if it's a fast formal portrait. So what I have to produce is something that she can't produce on her own, and produce something where he looks happy and not constipated. He doesn't want to be in the picture, but he has to be. So to get them through my line, produce something that they're hoping for and kind of expecting, and then produce it fast. So the military ball, just like the Santa photos, you don't have to deal with body image so much. It's just cute little kids. I get that.
Sure.
But when you're dealing with a girl in a gown, totally different animal. And then, he just wants to get it done. We're done with this, right?
Yeah.
You've got 3 shots. You better get this done. So to come up with a system that keeps up with the expectation, not just the expectation of pace of time, but what she's hoping for. And when you can do that, people will wait, but you have to be conscious of how long they're waiting, because that, I don't know, as long as they're in line with a drink in their hand and their friends are in front of and back of them, they don't mind waiting, which is helpful.
And so then this new system that we've pieced together, and we're making this work, and you're obviously very happy with it, and that makes me very happy because, again, I am not a coder per se. Like, it takes me 24 hours to do what one of our developers does in 60 minutes, right? So this really it's a grind for me to get some of this stuff out, and it's really, really fun for me to see you using this out in the field. So basically what they're doing is they're coming up to a really basic data entry station, right?
Yes. So one of the beauty of this system, what it did for me, is it brought my need for personnel a lot less. I can handle an event like this with a lot less people, which is really great. So I have one assistant that just greets people and explains you need to fill out this little piece of paper and also type in on this iPad your name, email address, and phone number, and make sure that they're the same. And here's how it works, which is a famous Rick Avalos line. I don't know if you know who he is, but when you tell your customer, here's how it works, they shut up and listen, because you're laying the rules, and it's really great.
Right on.
So when you explain, here's what we're doing tonight, here's how it works, you're going to be taking this many images, here's how we deliver them, and here's how much it costs, how would you like to pay for that? And people are like, here's my card, or do you take cash? It's beautiful. So that person's job is to do nothing but greet them, explain the process, get them registered, and then they get in line to have their picture taken.
That's wonderful. So, and really what all they're paying for then, or I shouldn't say all or just, it's really what we as photographers have done all along. We are providing a service that somebody should be paying for, right? And the way I look at the system is really this is going back to what photography actually is. It's funny, I just had a conversation this morning with my old boss at this high volume youth athletic photography company, and I said, man, things got really convoluted when you go to paper order forms and then you build your entire business model into an 8x10 print, right? And somehow that's got to be priced in a way that the customer will buy it, and then you're making enough money to run this entire business, when really the core of what we're doing is they're paying us to take an excellent photo, as you mentioned, something that they can't do, right? And so this system, really what they're paying for is to have this image sent to their phone directly, and that's it, right? Yeah.
Well, and what I recognized a long time ago is that these photos at a ball are very much a souvenir. So if you look at the purpose of the photograph, now, will people print and frame them? Yes, they will, and they do often.
Yep.
But, you have to look at the nature of what the product is. And they just want a really well done photo where she looks skinny and he looks happy. That's all they want. And if they have it on their phones, whether they determine to print it or not, that makes them just overjoyed. They're so thrilled to have something nice that they can control, that they paid a fair price for. And Capturelife, I've done this system several times, and I'm head over heels. It's done exactly what I've needed, which is really great.
That's great. And to your point, the print store is still there. And at Capturelife, we've never discredited the value of prints by any means. And me with 20 years in the industry, I'm like, photographers, make money any way you can. I don't care what it is, but you need to sell something. And Capturelife just happens to be that digital delivery conveyance that then leads to that instant gratification that we're used to on our phones, the social sharing.
Yep.
And as you just mentioned, if they want that 8x10 print with the frame on it, they can go ahead and buy that at their leisure with this Amazon phone experience, whatever it is they want to do, they purchase it, and they have it shipped right to their house, right? So they don't have to carry physical prints or a framed print around with them at the ball that you try to produce there, and they certainly don't have to, you don't have to go back and worry about shipping and packaging or anything like that.
Right.
I'm happy to say that I had a call with a photographer yesterday who came to me saying, "Hey, TW, I've got one Santa Claus shoot. What can I do for it?" And I said, "I have got something for you." And that photographer that called me last year about the Santa Claus photography, I didn't meet his window because, again, it takes me days and days and days to write one page of code. So I couldn't help him last holiday season, but when Easter rolled around, I'm very happy to say that he ran it at 7 malls with Easter Bunny photos. So
nice.
I'm happy to say that it's the system itself is doing what it's supposed to do. And I think that there are other events that this could work at. I think that you mentioned a military ball is really a drunken prom, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully proms are a little bit more sober, but I can see this working there with a younger crowd. What do you think?
Oh, they'd eat it up. I think the kids would love it because they're expecting it. That's just an absolute in their heads. I haven't done proms. It's not something I've built my business with, but I'd be curious what parents, if you can somehow tie in the parental, because whether the parents have paid for the prom pictures and given them money for it, or I don't know, that'd be an interesting thing because parents want those photos, but the kids want them too. So, yeah.
I think it's a way that if it's easy enough and the price point's enough, that I know the kids are probably all out there trying to get the right angle and snapping those selfies, which, hey, that's just what's happening. And as you said, but if you bring in one of those full sets, right, and it's something that they're not able to capture, and then that memory becomes valuable. And really the idea is get as many as you can in a line. I think with them, you certainly would see some of what I mentioned before, just this social interaction back and forth and getting these formal pictures taken. And you would certainly hope that would help, start doing its own marketing in that scenario.
Yeah.
But needless to say, the system works. We're live testing it. You've got more events coming up. I need to just for a moment say thank you for your willingness to come out here on this cutting edge with me. This, as you know, we've got to do a lot of back end work to make each one of these work at this point. But one of the things that you and I have done is proved out that this is a viable model. This is what customers are looking for.
What is a business owner's biggest concern? All the expense, right? So to be able to make it so it's a do-it-yourself kind of system where they walk up where it says, the sign says start here and points to an iPad, that makes it so easy. Even if someone's been drinking since noon, they can walk up to that iPad and go, "Oh, and you need my name, and here's where I pay." Yeah. That's awesome. I hope you get a chance to ask me about the financial piece of what this has done, what this system. It's like I said, it's just dreamy. It's just the most beautiful thing that what I went from that old cumbersome system to what this has offered. Oh, please ask me.
The reason that I haven't is I come from an old school business model, completely unlike your Photographers Guild, where we were very secretive and somehow we were the only ones that knew the recipe and you couldn't tell anybody, right? And come on. So that's been built into me. That's why I hesitate to ask people, but please explain to me the financial model that you've worked out with this. Yes.
Okay. So over the years, trying to respect the fact that our military they just don't make much. And I know that because I was active duty. Now, granted, that was 20, 25 years ago. They still don't make much.
Yep.
So trying to come up with a product and a price group for what you're selling that can be in that sweet spot for that lowest enlisted guy who can barely afford to be there with his date,
Yep.
to, you know, the major or the colonel that have been there for years and years. So trying to come up with something. So over the years, trying to, and make it worth it, because I can't charge the unit to have my services because they don't have the budget for it.
Yep.
So I have to completely work off of a commission basis in order to be there. So what that means is I only make money if someone comes up to buy a package and has their picture taken. So with this system, with the Capturelife system, what I tackled or tried to battle a little bit about, do I offer different packages? Well, that means they get to choose. I don't want them to choose. I want them to just get what they get, because ultimately they're going to get an app or a text with a link to download the app, and boom, their photos are there. They don't have to choose anything. It's really great. So that meant that I had to come up with a package that I could be okay with, a one package thing. This is how it works, folks. Here's how it works. Fill in this information. Here's how much it costs tonight,
Yep.
and just have your pictures taken.
Yep.
From my old cumbersome system where they got to choose, where they had like 7 or 8 poses to choose from, and they had multiple different options on print packages and digital packages and combinations of both, and all the swag and all the stuff they got to choose. Oh, it was confusing and hard. So I've taken all that away, and I can tell you that my average sale at that point was about $55 per couple. And some people would certainly spend more, some people would certainly spend less. It was super confusing and really hard. So to go, I was ready to walk away and be done. I was ready to never do military balls again, because it was so hard on the front end and during and after. So this system, your system, has brought the ease on every single front, from front to end, the big beforehand, afterwards, and during. Because to bring it down to one, this is how it works. You either want your pictures taken, and here's how much it costs, and here's what you're going to get, or you don't have your pictures taken. And I will tell you, I think we've probably had, in the times I've done it now, I think I've done it 3 or 4 times. And so hundreds of couples have come through my line.
Yep.
And they've waited in line to get to the front of that to figure out how it works. And when they get to the front of the line, they hear how it works. I think maybe 2 or 3 couples have walked away. I have brought my price down. I put this sweet spot of what I wanted, what they get that night. I take probably 7 or 8 photos, maybe 9. And we tell them you're going to get 5 or 6 photographs, high res, that are delivered to you on your phone, and you can print from them. And it costs $40. And what we actually deliver is 7 or 8. So they always get a couple of extras. So
Sure.
they really can't argue that they like one of them or whatever.
Yep.
So you always over deliver, right?
Yep.
So the beauty of this is, now you're going to say, well, but your average sale went down. You don't understand. So my average sale, yes, was 55, but my cost of business, in combined with my cost of sales for that old system was roughly about 50 to almost 60%, because it was so expensive to have the service and all of the employees that I had to have there at those events in order to make that system work, and the cost of all the products and you name it, it was ridiculously expensive. So of my average sale, I didn't get to keep much of it. So to take that whole cumbersome system away, provide a much more simple process where I made that product, here's how it works price, which was $40. The other thing you have to remember is that with the old system, they'd walk up to a bank of computers and get to choose. Well, only 80% of them would purchase. 20% of them would walk away. So with this system, with Capturelife, and here's how it works, they come up to the front of the line and say, okay, how do I pay for that? It's 100% buy rate.
Yeah.
So instead of 80% with a higher, more expensive system, I'm now at a little bit less of an average sale, but it's 100% buy rate. And my average, or my cost of business, or my cost of sales is like 15%. And I'm like, oh my gosh, pick me. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That is worth all the, now every company or every system that you put in place has expense. Totally understand. But when you can step back and go, wait a minute, that was not the wise way to do that. But this system, I'm going to keep so much more. And people are thrilled. I'm thrilled. I'm having so much fun. I wasn't having fun.
Yeah.
And I have learned a long time ago, if you're not having fun, you shouldn't be doing it. So this has brought the fun back to those events for sure. It has.
I love it. And it sounds like it's brought the fun back in many different ways. And I thank you for breaking that down, because a lot of what you explained are often hidden costs. We think we've paid for a system or what it might be, but there's a cost to run the system. There's a cost to maintain the system. There's a cost to lug the system around. There's extra employees to lug the system around, maintain the system, and work the
Lab
system. Right?
costs, you name it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I appreciate you being able to reconcile a $55 average sale with that system versus a $40 average sale where the expense to complete the transaction just isn't there. And so your average sale has actually gone up, or I should say your margin has actually gone up, so you're making money.
Yes.
I am humbled in many ways here because, again, I don't consider myself a very good programmer. In this case, I took what Capturelife is, that the openness of Capturelife, and was able to cobble something together for you. And I can't tell you how happy I am inside that you've taken this and run with it. And it truly has been a pleasure to work with you. And this interview has even been more satisfying just to hear your take on it. It's fantastic, really. I can see the excitement. I can feel it. It's wonderful.
Well, I will tell you that I've been thrilled. It's exactly what I was looking for and hoping for. I was nervous to only offer one package because I'd always offered so many.
Yeah.
But I will never go back. It's just the best way to do it, and people love it. And all of your support is exactly what I had hoped for. So I'm of that generation where I pick up a phone. I need help. Can I just call someone? And now, of course, it's text and email, but there's still the phone there too. And you all have gone above and beyond to make sure that I've been supported at those events. Now, of course, it's 9:00 at night on a Saturday, and can I get a response? And by golly, you guys do.
Yep.
And it's really wonderful. So I'm so grateful for the attentive. You guys care about what I care about, which makes all the difference. Yes, the technology is there, and yes, that's what I wanted system-wise, but the people are behind it, and that makes all the difference in the world.
I think
So
that,
thank you.
yeah, that statement can be extended to we all care deeply about this industry, and our consumer is changing rapidly. I think smartphones are changing our society in ways we still haven't figured out, and I cannot say if it's good or bad, but it's like, it's changing, and I think we together as an industry need to be willing, like you were, to really just embrace something new, take that leap of faith, right, and come out there on that cutting edge with a company like Capturelife or with me, and just go, let's try this, let's see what happens. Things are changing. Let's try and keep up with them. So I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you coming along on that adventure, and I appreciate you joining me on this interview. Again, it's been tremendously satisfying for me to catch up with you. So thanks for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Excellent.